History of the Church. I'm Jonathan McCormick.
And I'm Adam Chrisman.
An Oral History of the Church is a conversational history podcast. This first volume is an oral history of the campus relocation of Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary's main campus from Mill Valley, California to Ontario, California. The school now has a new name as of June 2016, Gateway Seminary of the Southern Baptist Convention.
The 9th episode for this volume is an interview with Professor of Archaeology and Old Testament, Chair of Biblical Studies, and Curator of the Marian Aiken's Archaeological Collection, Dr. Gary Arbino.
I was really looking forward to hearing from Dr. Arbino since he was both a student, staff, and faculty member.
Mm-hmm.
He can be a little abrasive at times. And unfortunately, like you said, he's biblical studies, not theology.
Oh, I know it burns you so. But I think his wit and his excellent teaching abilities serve us far better than your weaker discipline.
I really enjoyed him as a professor. Mm-hmm. He's a very engaging lecturer and is excellent at his craft.
I agree completely. I took him for multiple classes over the years and was consistently challenged to do better, to think more sharply and express myself clearly. Dr. Arbino is world-class scholarship, in my opinion, with what he produces and how he teaches, and I'm grateful for every class and moment I had in both my MDiv and in my PhD with Golden Gate.
We'll cover this more in the interview, but he's done very well with his publications, and the dig that he participates in is an important contribution to the field of biblical studies.
That's right. And contrary to popular belief, he does not wear a whip on his belt as he goes around. Not all archaeologists use one, I suppose.
Yeah, he kind of frowns upon the wearing of leather jackets at the dig.
Well, here we go. Let's listen to Dr. Gary Arbino.
This is Jonathan McCormick
and Adam Chrisman
interviewing Dr. Gary Arbino on May 25th, 2016. This interview is taking place in the Medium Conference Room of Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary's library, located at 201 Seminary Drive, Mill Valley, California.
Dr. Arbino, thank you for your time. We're grateful that you carved out this little piece for us and willing to give us a chat about all these questions we've got.
My pleasure.
We've got a fairly standard set of questions, so we'll start with, how did you first hear of Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary?
Out of college, I was working at a church as a custodian. I would suggest that all pastors start there. I will let you see things from another perspective. But anyway, working at a church, and the pastor that we had just hired actually was a graduate of Golden Gate, so I had heard of Golden Gate Seminary. It was an American Baptist church, and he was an American Baptist, but he had come to Golden Gate and studied and had a good experience. So he suggested when we were talking about my career future, my ministry future, to go to Golden Gate. And that was one of the options that we had. We were looking at a variety of different schools to go to. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, the thing that got my wife and I here was the cover on the catalog, how shallow we are. The cover on the catalog from the 1985-86 catalog was an aerial photo of the beautiful Strawberry Point, all green and pretty, and we were living in Humboldt County, which was all green and pretty, and we said, yes, we can go to that place. So, combination of factors.
My, how the times have changed.
Yeah, it's not green and pretty today.
So how did you first come to study here after that? So you heard about it, decided to come.
We came. They used to hold a preview conference in conjunction with the missions conference in February, and we came to that and stayed and went to some classes. And I often tell the story, and I've told it publicly, and Dr. Brooks doesn't care. I sat in on a Dr. Oscar Brooks' New Testament class where they were, I'll keep it short, discussing the end times. And there were discussions and all kinds of, I believe this and this is true, and what about the Bible? And Dr. Brooks, after letting them play around for a while, he went up to one side of the blackboard at the time, yes, chalk and blackboard, and put a cross way at one end and said, colleagues, this is where you die. There's your grave marker. And he walked all the way across the front of the classrooms, 20, 25 feet, and he put a little crown over there. And he said, colleagues, this is where those who have faith in Christ end up in heaven. Does it really matter what happens in between? And at that point I said, I can go here. This will work for me. And that was it. That class actually made me decide among other things.
Sure.
But that was it. It was a program that let you think, allowed you to think, and then wasn't horrifically dogmatic on one particular view of what is a very complex issue or another. He just said, you're going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you shall be saved, and that's what you need.
That's right.
So
that is awesome.
And that was for your Master of Divinity, correct?
well, that was actually a preview conference class that I snuck in on.
Right. But your first program you enrolled in here
Was the Master of Divinity. That is correct. Graduated with the Master's in 89. 89.
And then did you go from MDiv straight into PhD?
Straight into the PhD program, and studied under Dr. Kenneth Akins, small k, small e. Mm-hmm. He just wants me to say that. Yeah. And got my PhD in 1996.
Mm-hmm. We hope to talk to Dr. Akins actually for our podcast here. He's agreed to, and we just need to settle on a time.
Well, you guys must have offered him something. I don't know.
We finally got our savings, our little piggy banks out, and
there
cracked
you
them
go.
up, and that must be what it is.
Take him to McDonald's. He likes McDonald's.
So, was there any break from when you graduated from the seminary to beginning work here, or have you been able to stay here the whole time? Our next question is how long you've studied and worked here.
30 years.
30 years.
I started in fall of 1986, and by fall of 1987, I was employed at this beautiful library facility on the AV staff, and shortly, about a year or so after that, I was co-director, doesn't that sound impressive, of the AV department, and then moved into circulation, supervised circulation for a couple of years, a year or two, something like that, and then moved into faculty. During my PhD program, I did do some teaching as well, and so.
And what was your dissertation on?
Okay. Since I don't usually bring it up, but since you have, the effects, I think I actually have this memorized, the effects of Neo-Assyrian administrative policies on the populations west of the Euphrates River.
Wow.
Yeah, doesn't that sound impressive?
That is as archaeological a degree as you can get here, or at least at the time.
It was pretty historical and archaeological. It was a fairly broad scope dissertation. It's never been published, although it has been used as a textbook in its current state in a couple of places, a couple of universities back east.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. So, what is your current role at Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary?
Apparently packing. That seems to be it right now. I am currently professor of archaeology and Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament, depends on what day we're asking. I am the chair of the Biblical Studies Department, and I am the curator of the Marion Akins Archaeological Museum, and I think that's enough.
We've got a few hats, and for our listeners and posterity, the library closed 2 days ago, a day ago, and everybody is trying to get things furiously packed. It's a bit of a busy day.
So what are some of your favorite memories of either studying or working or both while here at this particular location?
Favorite memories. I looked at your sheet and wondered about favorite memories. I mean, there are lots of good memories.
Yeah, sure.
I lived on campus I believe I still have my wife and I have the record of single longest living on campus as a student. We were here 7 years. And so there's lots of nice memories of being alone on campus, just wandering and watching the deer and, late evenings. Those are very pleasant memories. We used to have a choral society that worked here, and it was nice when the music department was up and running before it got shut down. Lots of music, and so there was a choral society. There were student recitals. Those were always very fine memories because you have a lot of talented people that came through and were able to do that. Moving into the library, Barbara Dabney, the librarian of yore, she really worked hard to make things fun, and we did have a lot of fun. There were some very fine times during that. When I first started going and engaging with the faculty on a more equal level during my PhD program, and don't get any ideas, John.
Understood.
Going out to coffee with them, and we would go and run away from campus and go over to a bakery, or there were a couple places we would go and have coffee, and those were always very fine memories. Working in the museum has been very fun. Obviously, collegial relationships with faculty. If we're looking for specific stories, I tried to think of some, none that can be put on the radio. No. But just a number of very nice dealings with people. We've had some important folks come and give lectures on campus, and that's always been a good time. Your next question is about the prized achievement, but of course my favorite memory is my prized achievement, and that is getting my doctorate and having the faculty say, "Oh, fine, we'll let you teach." Which is, we won't go into that story, but that's kind of how that worked. But there you are. So, getting the degrees was very fun.
As a slight aside, how did you get connected with the museum?
The museum had been a small-scale operation. Dr. Akins had been picking up some bric-a-brac and some stuff. And in the current spot where the museum is, the main room, there were no doors there originally. We had those put in. And the wooden wall, as it were, over the abyss, over the ledge, that was not there either. And there were just a couple of cases with some random things in it not random. Dr. Akins' wife was the first curator, Marion Akins, for whom the museum is named. And her office was in the back where AV was. And so we got to know her quite well, and she died in 1990. And we got to know her in AV, and so getting to know her and my mentor was Dr. Akins, and so there was that connection. We did have fun with her. Once we in the AV tech department found the keys and took out all her exhibits and replaced them with very silly electronic things, and the early electronic age. And so we had a grand time. She thought it was very funny. To this day, don't ask Dr. Akins about that when you interview him. He did not see any humor in it at all, which made me laugh even more.
Yeah. I'm guessing she didn't have a hard time tracking down the culprits then.
No, not in the least. Not in the least. And she gave us a little smile and said, "You can keep it up for a week." And we did, and then we took it down.
That's a handy little prize.
Yeah.
I guess that's why the library doesn't have keys to the museum exhibits.
That's exactly why nobody knows where they are.
You telegraphed this a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your most prized achievement you earned while at this campus. It's a lot of work to get a PhD.
Oh, no, it's not. Are you guys taking a while? What's your problems? Yes, it is a big achievement to get a doctorate and get it all the way pushed through and that sort of thing. That is probably the most prized, but then being invited to be on faculty is also a very big achievement. I mean, not everyone who gets a PhD, just letting you know, not everyone who gets a PhD here teaches here. Part of it was, the kind thoughts that the faculty had about me and my work, and part of it was that Dr. Akins had just retired, and his replacement, Dr. Liz Nan, she had gotten it, and then she, after a year, had been asked to teach at the Baylor Seminary, the Logsdon Seminary, which she accepted that position. And so I got a fax. I don't know if your listeners know what a fax is, but I got a fax in Israel that had to, when I was over there digging in the summer, asking if I wanted to be an Old Testament prof. So the fax took about 2.5 days to actually get to me out in the field, but another 2 days to get back. But that was under Dr. Durst, and so it was very nice to be invited to be that. And apparently it's easier to keep me on than to kick me out. So they have kept me here these, 20-some-odd years.
Well, they get that time off, I guess, when you go to Israel every summer.
And many of them appreciate it. Many of them appreciate it.
And you do go every summer, is that right?
I go most summers. Probably about 60% of the summers since 1990. There was a little gap in there while I was doing my dissertation that I didn't go. And then off and on. And this summer I will not be going because we have to move the museum and rebuild it. So Dr. Martin said I couldn't go. You can tell them I had my lower lip out when I said that.
Note, lower
lip out. Yes. Maybe we'll get a restriction on that particular one. No.
So have you been at the same location there in Israel primarily, or has it been several different ones?
I've worked at several sites. I worked at Tel Mikne Biblical Ekron for 5 years, 5 seasons, and then I worked at Bet Shemesh and Bet Shean, and then in Jordan at Tel Alumari, and then Tel Rehov, and then for the last 8 years, 10 years, I've been with the Tel Gezer excavations down at Tel Gezer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our next series of questions are about the sale. Our first one being before the announced sale of the Mill Valley campus on April 1st, 2014. What was your impression? And you've had plenty of time. You lived on campus and faculty here. What was your impression of the relationship between our Mill Valley campus and the neighbors surrounding in the community next to us and at large?
I have coffee with some of the neighbors on occasion, and did before this happened, and have always found them to be very happy to have the seminary here, but very happy to have the seminary here as it stands. There is a great love to have a nice park next to your house. And that's not a bad thing on them. I would like it too.
Sure.
They have always, in my hearing, been very positive. They would come to the lectures. We used to do archaeology lectures here on campus. They would come to the lectures. They would come to hear the choral society and even some of the recitals. There always was a fairly strong bond. With some of the older or previous neighbors. There have been some new ones, and demographics change. I still know some of them. They talk to me. What I noted in terms of when we wanted to do our master plan, when we wanted to change things, change is always very upsetting, especially when someone thinks that they have invested a great deal into a status quo, their property value or whatnot. It causes significant fear, and what will this look like, and how will this affect me personally? And many of them went into that. I did not attend any of the meetings, so I don't know of what the level of rancor was at those meetings, but clearly there was some, and they were interested in status quo, and we were interested in modifications that were essential to our continuation. Deferred maintenance is an issue that simply can't be ignored. And unless somebody hands us $1 bazillion, we can't do it. So it really was an issue. It got to be an issue of two very strong competing needs. And at that point, I think we were blessed, fortunate that a solution presented itself, because we were spending a lot of money to try to continue this solution, but as far as the neighbors go, I still see them, and they still come and talk to me, and now they want to know about Branson.
Yeah.
Do I think that Branson's going? It's like, we stole the property. I have no clue what's happening, and quite honestly, I don't care.
Yeah.
So, I think we generally had a good relationship until there was a tipping point. And sadly, that tipping point revolves around something very heartfelt: quality of life, and of course, money.
Yeah.
And once you hit those two, you're gonna get some real pushback, and we did.
Yeah, that's true.
It sounds like you've answered our next question, that there hasn't been much change since the announcement, other than different types of questions being answered.
Much change between the relationship?
Yeah.
From the neighbors that I talk to when I have coffee with them, they seem to be happy that they won. I mean, but they seem to still think we live here. And I'm not sure that they've really figured out. I mean, I'm sure some of them have.
Sure,
they're not dopey people.
Yeah.
But at a deeper level, that really this is what it's going to look like, and how will this be affected. So if given what I had heard about the rancor at the meetings, I have not seen that rancor now. Although there are more meetings going on that we're not a part of, so I don't know. I don't know how the land trust and ostensibly Branson are being treated. I simply don't know, because it's still quality of life and money.
Yeah.
We asked this question largely expecting a no answer, but
No. Okay. What question?
were you in on the discussion surrounding the sale before it was finalized?
Well, I'm in on everything around here. See, you didn't expect that. The discussions of what? I mean,
The
as
potential
faculty...
sale, like do we sell, do we not?
Well, we have been having those discussions since I got here in 1986, and they'd been going on before then. For many years, we were looking at going to Fresno. That was the big thing, and then Southern Cal. And so the issue of moving the seminary has always been on the plate. And so there were discussions about that happened, but as far as the actual sale of this property, hurts me to say this, I was in the dark as much as anybody, even to the point where I was allowed to project a sabbatic course of action that then they kept stalling. They let me do it, and then they kept stalling it because they knew they thought we were going to sell. And right at the very end, they said, "Oh yeah, we didn't let you do that because we were selling the property. I was supposed to completely renovate the museum on my sabbatic." And it was right during that time when they thought they were going to sell, and then they finally got there. So
we had a similar experience with the library at that same time.
So they were pretty tight-lipped about it up at the stratosphere of our administration.
Yeah.
We had not heard before, or at least Adam and I hadn't heard before, about a Fresno direction. How far did that go?
Oh, this was years ago. They were looking at options where it was cheaper to have a seminary in California. Okay. Livermore, Fresno. Fresno has the home office of the state convention, so it was a natural, well, come on down. And it's in the Central Valley where it tends to be a more conservative landscape, similar to, where we're going now. So yeah, there have been lots of options.
And what was your opinion about the sale at the time that it was announced?
At the time it was announced, I was utterly horrified because I had just had an eye problem and was basically on my stomach waiting for the surgery to wear off. So I didn't know any of the. It was too much to handle right then. But again, the issue of the museum stuff that got done, a lot of things fell into place. I'm not happy about the move. So, I mean, that's just probably going to be another, I would rather it always, I don't like change either. So there you go.
Yeah.
But if it were all about me, we would stay here. But it's not. There are other things that, as the president likes, the mission and all of that. I personally, it's a terrible decision for me. For the institution, I believe it's the right decision, and that's how I thought about it. That's how I do think about it.
Yeah.
I would love to keep commuting here and not commute to Fremont.
Yeah.
I would love for all of my friends to stay here instead of going down to Ontario. I was being senior professor in Old Testament. I had the option of whether I wanted to go down or not, and decided against it. I was raised in Los Angeles, been there, done that, got many of the T-shirts, and it turns out it's the right move. And we were the ones who didn't live on campus. So those Dr. Watson and Dr. Wagner lived on campus. They were going to have to move anyway. They could just move on down there, and so it all worked out.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what 75 miles one way looks like in a commute. But Dr. Durst has been very helpful in trying to plan classes for students in a way that allows people who have to commute to not kill themselves. I don't know. You may have a different story, Jonathan, as librarian. You have to be there from 9 to 5 or something like that. Yeah. But I wish it would stay the same. I'm not a big change fan.
Yeah.
Change is inevitable. It's not always good.
Yeah.
You're continuing to teach with the THM and PhD programs, correct?
That's the plan at the moment. One never knows, But I mean that should happen. I should still have 2 classes that I'll fly down. I'll do the THM course in Second Temple Literature, which you took as a THM, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
That
And
was,
we're moving that back to a THM course because it just didn't work as a PhD course, because nobody starts high enough with the knowledge base of the material to jump in at a PhD level. Yeah. So it'll be a PhD, and then Old Testament theology will be my PhD course. So tell all your friends, which we now can insist that they read what I used as my textbook. And so we can just start from there and say, you've read this, now let's move on. So it'll be a slightly different course than you took.
There aren't many reasons that make me sad that I'm not in seminar stage anymore, but that's one of them, is missing a couple of good courses. I would love to
You
take
always
that
can
too.
do that. Of course, you'd have to fly down.
That's true.
Yeah, you could. I'm sure they'd let you.
Oh, you want to pay more tuition? Take another course. Let's do it.
Yeah. See, you're married. Try that. Yeah, see how that works. I just want to go and sit in on a class and it doesn't get me anything other than knowledge. Right. Can I have some money?
Yeah, Rachel will love that.
Yeah.
What do you hope the seminary will prioritize as we make this historic transition?
The first thing that comes to mind is the mission, but that's I'm sure you've had that. And I interview Dr. Orge; he'll deal with that a lot. And I do think that. I mean, we are what we are, and if we're not that, then we shouldn't be. But your comments about the PhD program call to mind another issue. One of the things that we have at this campus is a sense of background, is a sense of heritage. In terms of where we've come from, we tell the story. Yes, there will be a story there, and yes, there will be alcoves with stuff about the past in them. But I hope, prioritize may be too strong a word, but I hope that the heritage is not lost in all of the newness. I know that there's a move towards the keeping of the heritage, but just a personal thing. Everything's all shiny and new. I guess this can go on there. In our last chapel, I was saddened that none of the retired professors who had passed away, there was no mention of those who had gone before. Yeah. It was all very forward focused in a last chapel where things have been going on here for 50 years. Yeah. And that kind of oversight leads me to, and I'm a historian. That's what I do. I'm an archaeologist. So I do worry about those things. And so I would hope that they would prioritize, not that the past is a priority, There was a TV interview that went on with a Japanese grower down in the Central Valley, organic farm grower, and his point was that we're not nostalgic, but that we understand our heritage through the stories we tell. Yeah. It's not, and I think I've heard them articulate what I would say is this nostalgia that we just want to live in the past. No, we don't want to be but we don't lose our connection.
Yeah.
And we are connected. We are connected to this place. We are connected to Berkeley. Mm-hmm. We've never lost that connection because we're still in the Bay Area. We got the pictures. We tell that story. Mm-hmm. I hope we don't. I hope we remember those that went before us. Yes, as a faculty, I can go to Southwestern Seminary. Yes, I've even mentioned it on here. Brand X, as Dr. Cruz used to always say, Brand X Seminary. And those professors who retired have their pictures on the wall. Mm-hmm. Those, it's not just the presidents in the wonderful, here, let me say this, I've said it anyway, in the copy of the Pantheon in Rome. Their main entrance is a copy of the Pantheon in Rome, and in the spots are the presidents. It's just, I don't know if they've ever figured that out, but I walked in and I laughed out loud, and somebody who was with me couldn't figure out why I was just laughing that you have deified presidents at Southwestern, including one who's not dead yet. So there you are. But no, we don't need to deify our past, but to remember it. I think I've said enough on that.
No, I think that's helpful, and it is a unique contribution to what we've been hearing so far. We've been having interviews since late January, and we're really grateful for your time again and everything that you shared. Thank you very much. This means a lot to us that you would carve out time that they're cracking the whip, hoping to get all these boxes filled and everybody situated so they can just check everything off the list. But you've made time for us.
Well, the president actually smiled as he walked by my office because he saw progress.
That was Dr. Gary Arbino, Biblical Studies faculty for Gateway Seminary.
Jonathan, I really enjoyed getting this opportunity to talk with Dr. Arbino for our project. He, as I mentioned in the intro for this episode, is one of the most interesting professors I had in seminary. And so it was interesting to finally get a chance to talk about more of his history with the seminary prior to and including his time being hired on as faculty. I especially enjoyed, of the stories that he shared, how he got hired was pretty interesting. I don't think most people get a fax from the other side of the world offering the opportunity to go on faculty somewhere.
Yeah, that's not everyone's story on becoming a professor.
Yeah. Well, what about you? What did you enjoy about what Dr. Arbino shared?
I've enjoyed my time working in the library, and as circulation, I was the keeper of the keys, and I always was wondering, why don't I have keys to any of the archaeology things?
Right, because that was included in the building. For those who may not know, the Archaeological Museum was a sectioned off part of the library building.
In fact, I had to walk through the museum to clock in every morning.
Right, but you didn't have keys.
I didn't have keys so I had to go the long way around. And certainly didn't have keys to the exhibits. So
now we
know.
Direct line from him to this problem. But worth it. That was a good story.
And it was interesting to hear the different, almost opposing views within the community on how the seminary should interact or should exist. That there were people who even had the problems with the institution being here when we first were founded.
Yeah. And it was also interesting to get Dr. Arbino's raw perspective, his mixed perspective on the relocation. He, as he says in the interview, he completely understands why the institution would make the choice that it made. But personally, for him as a human being, as an individual, he's not going to get to go to all the same old haunts all the time. Mm-hmm. He's not going to get to see all the same people on the same basis. So that's a big change. And he's going to have a more significant commute now. He already had a significant commute, but it'll be much longer going down to Fremont for the new campus once that opens in January.
I agree. I would commend Dr. Arbino for his, dare I say, Christ-like behavior. I'm
not sure he knows who that is. He's really focused on the Old Testament.
Yeah, I think he's heard of the New Testament.
We can make these jokes, because I'm 95% sure he's never going to listen to this episode.
Oh, certainly not.
Well, our next episode will have somebody who has some more interesting stories that she shared with us. Her name is Anne Marie. She is a recent alumnus of the seminary back in the month of May, when it was still Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary.
Thank you for joining us in the month of July. July is a big month for an oral history of the church. We're going to be releasing new episodes every week here on iTunes, YouTube, whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on.
That's right. So if you've been only checking every 2 weeks, make sure you're up to date every week in the month of July. Possibly even through the month of August, depending on how many interviews we get. We don't know at this point.
And if you're only listening on iTunes or your podcasting app, try stopping by the YouTube channel. We do have a couple special videos with some side information and a walkthrough of the library to help you see a little bit more of what we're talking about the seminary campus.
That's right. And also the YouTube versions of these episodes include photographs of the campus and the surrounding environs, both before the move began and after a lot of things. One of our most recent changes here at the campus has been taking down every last bit of signage. So in an upcoming episode, we will have a picture of the main gate sign, the main entry sign with the nice installation with the name, and also without, because it's been taken down. Either way, episode 10 with Anne Marie will be available 1 week from today, on July 15th, 2016.
We hope you've enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed making it. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, please subscribe. If you think this is helpful, please rate and review so other people can know about this project.
That's right. Without anything else from us, we'll say so long until next week. May God bless you as you go. He's already gone before.